Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. We're a father-son podcast where we talk with other lifelong learners about making an impact and solving big problems. And we've got a returning repeat, a glad to have you back at least halfway because I missed that one. Friend of ours, friend of the show, James Corbett. James, how
I
you
am
doing, man?
great. I'm glad to be back. Actually, I'm like really glad. I loved it last time. Cam and I had a really good conversation. It's good to have you here too, though.
Oh yeah. I know this will be great, and I want to. And you said this right as we're walking out of the green room. I always love making analogies like that because ain't nobody walking. It's a virtual, folks. If you didn't know, we're not actually in a green room. We're virtual. So, but anyways, you mentioned the fact that I'm a patriot. What what started that? Because I know that's the catalyst that helped you, that drove you to be part of creating Project Refit.
Absolutely. So
So,
I just got done talking about that the other day because I know there's a lot of question marks in the community, especially in the veteran community, when it comes like somebody who's a civilian that steps up and does a lot, and even amongst the even law enforcement community too. When I see people doing that, like, what is this guy doing? What's his angle? Is he just trying to like get up and make money and like steal and whatever? So to be honest with you, it's really not that complicated for me. It's how I was raised, genuinely. I was raised in a household where my brother was accepted to West Point, for instance, and he actually ended up not going to West Point only because he wanted to be a doctor, and only the top 2% of the class actually gets to become a doctor. So it's always been in my family and talked about in my family. And like my uncle was a Marine. I have an uncle that was in the Air Force. I have another uncle that was in the military. And like it's a part of the family. And for me, my leaders or my heroes, I should say, were always guys who were entrepreneurs. I can show you actually a book I'm reading right now. It's actually about James Dyson. So like I'm obsessed with guys that are obsessed with innovation and with trying to make a difference in the world. And I think there's nothing more important to the American society than doing that. I really do relish in the fact that I get to remind people every time we have an event, I get to remind people that it's up to the civilians to really keep the American dream moving forward. Because, guys who fought for us and fought for our freedoms meaning civilians, genuinely sacrificed a lot. Most of them don't really get a chance to recover very well and healthy because of what they went through. So it's up to us as a society to recognize that we are one and that we need to move together, lockstep, if you will, to really help and to really grow as a community. It's something that's been driven into me since I was a kid. One of my favorite memories from when I was a child, actually, my parents brought me to what the heck is it called? I forget what it's called, but it was a bunch of children that were actually adopted into a family. It was like it was a foster home, but it was foster family. That's what it was. Full-on foster family. So it was 12 children. The parents couldn't actually have their own because of medical issues, so they adopted a bunch of children because they wanted to be parents and make a difference. And there was kids literally from all over the world. My father and my mother, specifically my father, met them through church and also his job because he worked in the Camden diocese or the Philadelphia diocese actually for years. And we went there, we gave them food, brought them dinner, and we sat down, and I was 12 years old, 11 or 12. And I'll never forget that experience because it really showed me that you can make a difference for people if you just step up and you take action, right? Even if it's on a small micro level. And, I pushed that even this past Sunday, a Super Bowl Sunday, we hosted an event for a Marine, and I was able to tell everybody, I was like, hey, look around us right now. I have cars from every generation, young guys to get, like, I'm talking like 18, 19-year-olds all the way up to like a 75-year-old guy, 80-year-old guy, who are all there together doing something for the American community. There's nothing more important, and that was representative of America. So that's why I'm a patriot, and that's where I came from.
I love what you said of and well, part of this is inferred, but it's that the veterans, the soldiers are the ones out there protecting the American dream, but the responsibility falls on the civilians to keep that moving forward. Because I think there can be a lot of dialogue around sometimes of whether it's people saying the American dream is dead or it's not real, it's not what we think it is. And I want to throw that over to you, James. What's your definition of the American dream?
creation. So what I mean by that is, flat out, if you don't let people create, then you're not going to allow people to innovate. And creation and having creative mindsets is actually the most free thing, in my opinion, that a human can have. Because if you, so let me actually take you down a quick rabbit hole. I swear it's not going to be too long, because I've done a lot of thinking.
You know we love rabbit holes, James.
But when it comes to creation, if you allow a person to create, that means they're free to think. And your voice is what's talking to you in your mind. And if you begin to stifle people's voices and stop people from speaking, then you're actually stopping creativity and movement and freedom. So, and that to me is what we're protecting, or what we're trying to, I guess, foster in in America. And that is what the civilian has the opportunity to do, because of the sacrifices of those who are around them protecting that ability. So I make this argument that one of the most important jobs in America, if we really look at it in history, is police officers. And I'm going to give you an example why. In 1829, actually history lesson too, 1829, law enforcement was founded. So, and I'm dead serious when I say this. And when I make this argument, I think you're going to be like, wow, okay, that makes a lot of sense. So 1829, law enforcement was founded. So if you look at the change of markets and societies, it seems to be done by tens and hundreds and thousands, right? So if you look at it, in 1829 is when it was founded, okay? 100 years after that, essentially, one of the greatest revolutions in American history began to happen. Manufacturing started to really pick up, right? But people were free to create that process. And then the internal processes, like, oh my goodness. Unions had to step up, and then the people had to begin protecting themselves, right? And then as you go on, law enforcement allows the growth of these amazing cities all around the place, right? So literally because of that protection, but what happened is it was a separation from military. Now military is also very important, but the military job is not one to serve and protect. Its job is only to protect. What does that mean? It means they are preparing to take someone's life. And that is the absolute truth, right? Some people get uncomfortable with that. It's like, no, the military's no. The military was made as a machine to kill, and that is just the truth. And you have to protect your society that way. Whereas
all enemies, foreign and
right.
domestic.
And the thing is, for law enforcement, they were built to serve and protect. So it's a totally different model around protection. It's one that is supposed to foster the community and growth. And who are they protecting? The creator, the innovators, the entrepreneurs, the dreamers. That is what I believe is the American dream.
That's right. That's awesome. And that's a great way of looking at it. I love that. It's not buying a house in the suburbs, folks. There's a heck of a lot more to it. That might be an outcome that you're trying to achieve, but that's not the American dream. American dream is that ability to have the freedom to think and do what you want to do when you want to do it.
That's right. That's why I put inside of even my LinkedIn, I have creator on there. That's why it's so important for me to have that on there, is because at the end of the day, that's what I am. I like to create things, I like to do things, I like to empower people, and that's also freedom.
We talked about this before, and I was trying to remember. I think Camden and I might have touched on this in one of our YouTube discussions. And how do you, as a creator, how do you keep creating? And before you answer that, here's the follow on. How do you actually execute and not become the guy with 10,000 ideas that I've created but never taken to action? There's a big difference there.
So, long story short, I'm an advocate for doing your research and like gathering as much information in your brain as possible. And I'm also an advocate for sometimes it's unexplainable why you come up with something, but absolutely you have to execute. So I believe, in my personal opinion, people who overplan are actually the ones that never do anything, right? They don't actually succeed because they're constantly trying to figure out what's going to go wrong before doing anything. And the only thing, in my personal opinion, especially from reading so many of these biographies of really successful entrepreneurs and people, some of my heroes, they plan, but they also plan with purpose. So it's a perfect draw into what, tribe and purpose, right? So but genuinely, it is about purpose. And I think for men specifically, it's important that men specifically find that purpose, because we're not born necessarily with a purpose right out of the gate. And we need to have that, and we need to find that. And I think it's really important. And that's a part of the journey, which makes great stories, of course, as well. So I think it comes down to finding your purpose as your fuel to execute. And then that fuel will allow you to overcome any fear in your execution of the idea that you have.
I love what you said there about purpose, and it reminds me of, and this, full disclosure, I haven't read this book. I heard this reference the other day. I think the name of the book was called Suicide. It came out somewhere around 100 years ago, and it's this philosopher looking forward at technology changing and how in previous iterations of society, you have your purpose kind of handed down to you. My last name is Fleischman, so I'm a butcher, and my family are all butchers, and our Fleischman name carries weight because we've all been butchers. And once you get that freedom to go do these different things, and the division of labor kind of takes place inside of the family, then you get that opportunity to go create your own purpose. But when people don't go create that purpose, then it creates that gap, and that's why in the book he predicts huge rises in the rates of suicide, because people don't have that connection to their purpose anymore, because it's not forced upon them. As much as you would think it would be bad to have it forced upon you, it's better than not having a purpose at all. And I think that's a really interesting piece there. It ties back into what we're talking about of the creator, of being able to take your purpose, seeing it out in the world, and then using that to apply and using that to draw meaning from the rest of the world. Because, really, just going back to what you're saying about the American dream earlier, if you view yourself as a part of that and just contributing to this giant machine of creativity to build the country up, then that's a pretty powerful purpose, and that can be something that can keep you moving.
100%. I think that the onus is on leadership, on any person that's in a leadership position, to recognize that they need to communicate effectively the importance of every person's role in a position, especially if they're creating something, especially if they're a leader of a company and they're driving a different model forward. They have to tell everybody and remind them constantly, hey, what you're doing matters. I tell people all the time, I'm like, listen, if you want to join into Project Refit and be a volunteer, let's just to use an example of the nonprofit. I'm like, if you want to join in as a volunteer, and all you do, which, by the way, when I say all you do, I don't mean that in a negative way. If all you do is send one email a year to a company and you get a no, that matters. I'm not even joking. Because you send it again next year. That matters. Maybe they'll be like, oh, wait, these guys keep on coming back. And then maybe it'll happen, where one day it'll happen. But the thing is that people just feel like they need to do more because they don't understand necessarily that, no, your role and your job of what you're doing is perfect enough. If that's all you can contribute right now, that's better than saying you can do all of this and not do anything at all. That's worse. People that lead you on to saying they can do so much and not doing is much worse than you doing something.
Yeah. You and I must be on the same wavelength, because I was writing about that this morning. That exact thing. Not in that context, but in a context of networking. Yep. And I know y'all both experienced this, as many of our listeners have. When you meet somebody and you're talking at that event, and it's very engaging, and there's a lot of give and take, and it's a good fair exchange, and it seems like in that moment that it's like, yeah, I'm going to have coffee, beer, whatever with that person, right? And then you never hear from them again. And it always makes me wonder, in that sense of the authenticity of it. the authenticity of the person, because people, and this is a talk about rabbit holes. People have a hard time saying no, and the reason they have a hard time saying no to you in your face, me in my face, is because they don't want to hurt my feelings. And I find that really interesting as I've studied the human being and how we are more and more, and then reflecting back on my younger days and seeing the same thing.
Yep.
And in a organization like Project Refit, because it must be, man, that must be a terrible weight, because it pulls at everybody's heartstrings, and everybody's like, "Oh, James, yeah, what can I do? Oh, well, here, do these things, man. I really help. Oh, yeah, of course I will. I can't, oh, man." And then you never hear from that son of a bitch again.
Yeah, that does happen a lot. But honestly, that happens. That's just part of the course. You know what I mean? With a nonprofit, with anything.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about it. And I don't, like, people's shit happens.
No,
But-
I'm not saying you're worried about it, but there's a
There
weight
is
to it.
Oh, for sure. But something you said that I want to comment on that I really love. So when a person's afraid of hurting your feelings, which the no thing, right? I literally preface so many. I don't know. I'm good at reading people. I think it's because of my past traumas that I've had, and I'm very good at reading people. It was a joke. It's a thing.
Trauma is relative.
Yeah,
Just remember that.
Yeah, it is. So
I mean, running out of beer in the refrigerator
Can be a
can be a
traumatic
traumatic event.
I actually tell people, hurt my feelings. Tell me the truth. Like, don't be afraid of it. I want to hear what you have to say. It's just that when a person takes that to another level and, like, they begin to just, like, there's just nothing but criticism. They just begin complaining, it sounds like. And it's like, okay. Whoa. What are we doing here other than just now you're actually getting to the point where it's not productive? I think that there's a difference between criticism and constructive criticism. And for me, I believe that when you open that up, you actually begin to see there's a couple things that happen when you do that. You begin to see who the person is, right, for who they truly are, but also you can figure out what you need to do, right, the individual. Because when I sit back and I say to a person, hey, go ahead, hurt my feelings, I want to know what's going on, like, tell me the truth, I learn a lot in that moment. So open yourself up to that kind of stuff is all I got to say. Like, that's something I've been doing for a couple of years, and it's been nothing but amazing. It's such a great strategy for communicating with people.
Oh, I love it. You set the groundwork right there, and tell them it's okay. It's not,
Yep,
I
you're not
need
going to hurt
that.
my feelings.
We
Let's go.
want that feedback. Yeah.
And I think there's another interesting piece there, talking about the saying no, but then also saying yes to the smaller amount, I think is a big thing there. Because especially, like you said, Dad, for something like Project Refit, it's when it's something that's that emotionally tied and gets people that excited about the impact and all those kind of things, it's really hard to say, hey, I just want to call this one company. I want to help, but this is all I can do right now. I don't feel like I can commit more. But so then they close themselves off, they ghost after networking, whatever it is.
Yep.
Rather than just saying, hey, I can still do a little bit, because that little bit is better than not doing anything at all, or of acting like you want to do a lot and then not doing anything.
Yep.
Just be happy with that little bit.
That's it. Yeah, that's it, man. Right on the nose. Like, just do the little bit. Like, just send that one email. Let us know about that one guy that you came across that's struggling. Like, those are the things that really matter, right? Like that genuinely, those are the things that matter. Because at the end of the day, how are we actually, a great example of that, there was a woman, she basically volunteered for us twice, but in her time of volunteering for us, one of the times she volunteered for us was she sent us information about a vet or about a police officer and firefighter that had just taken his life. and left behind a family and stuff, and we ended up helping out, and we raised a bunch of money for that family, and then they just started a foundation of their own, and now they're one of our closest partners and like friends here at Refit, and it's exceptional. Even her doing that one thing that one time, just that was exceptional and has helped us help more people.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Cam and Otis Show. If you're enjoying this conversation, then make sure to share it with other lifelong learners in your life so they can enjoy it too. Stay up to date with the show on Facebook and Instagram at Cam and Otis Show, and subscribe to our channel on YouTube so you're the first to hear about new episodes and other special content. Now let's get back to the show.
You just brought up something, having worked in the nonprofit space a few years ago, and then back outside volunteering. One of the things that I've seen is this my rice bowl, my donor base. And I know you're not like that. I know Project Refit's not like that, or else we wouldn't have this relationship that we have. How do you establish that in your organization and maintain it?
Great question. I actually set the groundwork, the boundaries. I tell people all the time, I actually am so clear with organizations where it's like, hey, I actually just contacted an organization the other day, and I was like, listen, Project Refit, we did some fundraising. We have some money that we want to put towards more retreats this year. We want to expand our outreach, and we would actually like to do it for your organization, and it can be a joint retreat, or we pay for it, we take guys out, your name goes on it. You don't have to put any money out. We just want to take your guys out and give them an experience, and it's on you and us, right? But we're paying for it all. You don't have to worry about anything. We did the work to raise the money, and we're going to offer your guys something else to do. The organization that we spoke with, I've developed a relationship with this individual for a while, and the organization, they're like, absolutely, dude, let's go. Like, we know you're the real deal, so let's make this stuff happen. Other people, they will say things like, yeah, let's do a joint fundraiser, let's do this or whatever, and they never do it. And I actually, what I do now is I offer it right up in front. And I actually spoke with a guy the other day, and he was like, hey man, does Project Refit do grants to other organizations? I was like, we can't, via our bylaws, like we can't do that kind of stuff. We don't just like give grants to other organizations, but I am more than happy to do a fundraiser with you, and you'll get a majority of proceeds. Is that cool? Is that something you'd be down for? No, I don't think so. I'm like,
just give us money, right?
I was like, dude, you'll get more money if we do a fundraiser together than me giving you a small grant. And plus you'll have to go through a whole process for grants and like all this. I was like, why don't you just do a quick fundraiser? I don't understand. So that's actually one of the better things, though. It shows me like, well, first off, by the way, I respected the fact that guy said no, right? We're still cool. Like, we have a good relationship with each other. I'll still send him veterans. He'll send me guys. But like, it just didn't, I even said to him, I was like, dude, that doesn't make sense, man. I gotta let you know, like, you should rethink that. And and he's like, all right. And he's like, I'll think about it. And I was like, okay. But because we can do more together than not, because now you're getting nothing, right? And that's okay. I'm not worried about it, because us at Refit, I don't care what's going on. We're going to consistently grow. We're going to keep on moving. We're going to keep on doing things that show that we're reaching out to the community and making a difference. And we're just going to keep growing. No matter what happens, no matter what people say, we're just going to keep going. So, but that goes back to something that we're doing. It's very relevant for Tribe and Purpose, and I think very much about this podcast and what we're trying to talk about. So we are doing something, and we're beginning the process of like writing down our processes, and we're breaking it down to really simple concepts. And the reason why is because I'm trying to personally, I have a mission to reconnect American communities, starting with civilians that can then help out, first responders and veterans. Just like, that's me. That is literally, I'm trying to take what I did with Dan and Chris and everybody else, not just I shouldn't say it's not me, but
Thanks for bringing that up, because we didn't mention Dan and Chris, the other guys.
Those guys are a part of this too. Yeah. Like, there's so many of us that did this crap together. But and the only reason why I'm saying me right now is because I'm the civilian. I'm the only civilian that was a co-founder. So anyway, we're going to be breaking down these simple processes to create what's called the QRF process. So just like in the military, the quick response force, all that stuff, we're trying to basically build all of these different chapters around the United States that are based on supporting and raising money and awareness and whatever else of organizations in their areas, of favorite organizations in people's areas, and then getting veterans to those spots through really awesome events. So, and like micro events, even bigger events, and us here at the main Project Refit hub, we've actually made up our minds on, oh, wait a second, we're going to have one big, massive event that we're going to turn into something that turns into a multi-million-dollar event that's then going to help us launch these other chapters all around the United States, give them a small pot of money to work with, and all proceeds that go to these smaller chapters will be then filtered out to, they'll have to have their own, of course, money and stuff like that to do their things and to host their events and stuff, but once it hits that limit, the rest of it goes towards veterans in their area that need help with financial assistance, other nonprofits in their areas and things like that, but also 2 to 5% of all money that they raise for the year comes back to the hub, so we can continue our programs of retreats, the mobile bases, building more mobile bases, and continuing to launch out our organization and build our organization, hire guys internally to help these other organizations with reunions and retreats and all these great things. So it's a really good plan that we've put together, and the one big event that we're hosting, I'll just drop it here. It's the first time I'm saying it on on a publication, if you will, but we've kind of talked about it, is the tattoo convention. So we're hosting the first ever veteran focused and first responder focused tattoo convention. It's called Project Refit's Tattoo Convention, Stories of Blood and Ink. So, we're going to try to get a bunch of veterans to share, and even first responders, the tattoo of their brother or their sister that they lost, or a story that matters a lot to them. Because when I was looking at, this is actually a very I statement right now. I was looking at and observing the community overall, and I sat back and I was like, what is the thing that connects veterans, right? Basically almost all of them, 98% of them, and something that isn't that couldn't be deemed as a negative thing necessarily, to the body. Depending on religion, you can make an argument for that, but I'm not looking at it from that perspective. Alcohol, sure, alcohol, connects a lot of veterans, but that's not necessarily always a good thing. A lot of the time it's not. Drugs, some veterans are hooked on drugs and take drugs, and that's not a good thing. So even sex, overindulgence of it, it's, what is the thing that tattoos? Every single one of them that I've met, almost every single one of them that I met, has a tattoo. And I was like, whoa, there's something there with tattoos that we can, tattoo convention. It all hit my head. So that's the creative process that I went through, was observation, and then just taking an understanding of the community, who the people are that we serve, and really understanding them and getting to know them. And then spitting out, this goes back to what we were talking about before, of the creation process, right? So and then spitting out an answer. So that was the answer, and I was like, all right, we got to do this thing. And I told, Dan about it. I told Chris about it. I started talking to people about it in the community and our nonprofit. Every single one of them were like, dude, absolutely. Please do this. Get this thing going. Do this. So I talked to other local nonprofits in the area, motorcycle clubs that are, veteran and first responders and patriots together. Love it. So we're actually going for a walkthrough in an hour and a half from now. So when we're done this, I'm going to Battleship, New Jersey, and we're going to be walking on Battleship, New Jersey, taking a tour of that location, because we're probably going to be hosting it on a battleship. And it's in Camden, New Jersey. And we're going to be paying the $500 donation also to shoot the cannons off, to shoot the event off. Yeah, man.
Wow.
Oh, that's cool. When are you targeting?
28th, so we got a lot of planning time, and we're really excited, man. Because I wanted to take it real serious, and we've already started planning this a couple of months ago, and we're doing, I think, a really good job of pacing ourselves, because we also really wanted to focus on fundraising and executing on actual programs this year, both at the same time. So that requires a bigger lift and us distributing, just operation stuff, and we're doing a really good job at that right now. So.
I love your look into the creative process there, and kind of going back to the problem of the mindset in a lot of nonprofits is if you have that scarcity mindset, then you're going to stop about halfway through that creative process because you're going to start assuming that someone else is doing that, or that, hey, I've never thrown a tattoo convention before, I can't do this, that's someone else's territory. So that mindset, I mean, I think that's just a really great example of how big that mindset is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fear. I don't like a fear mindset. I hate it. I don't like fear at all. I not saying I don't feel it. Of course, I feel fear, right? I'll actually give you a great example so I can humanize myself with that statement I just made. So when we first started doing Project Refit, I didn't want to be the face of Project Refit at all. I didn't, because I'm not a veteran, right? I'm not a veteran. I'm not a cop. I didn't want to do it. But Dan and I talked about, specifically Dan and I, we're like the two main co-founders, and Dan's going through a lot of stuff at the time, and he's treatment, PTSD, the therapy, whatever. He was blown up. The dude just got out of war, and is getting medically discharged from the military. He has a lot of shit on his plate, right? He has to battle a lot of shit. So I was like, fuck, man. That whole thing. I was like, I got to do that. It's big because it's bigger than me. It's bigger than me. It's not about me. None of this has ever been about me. And the thing that actually, and I'm going to use this word and I mean it, pisses me off is when I hear people talking behind my back and saying stuff like, oh, he's a civilian, like this guy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, dude, you don't even know what I've been through. You don't even know what I've had to do to grow this thing. So it's something, also a learning experience for me is how to kind of ignore that stuff. And I'm figuring out how to ignore it, deal with it, work through it, and not really let it get to me. But I of course I had that fear in the beginning, right? Because I know I'm very self-aware. I'm a very self-aware person. But I knew also, you know what? If not me, who the hell else is going to do it? I have the ability, I have the drive, I have the brain, I have the energy. I'm going to do this because it's bigger and more important than me. So that's, and I mean, I've proven that over and over and over again, that statement, and I literally live and die by that shit. So yeah, man. That's where that came from, and why this fear mindset. I don't even have it when it comes to this tattoo convention. I'm like, fuck it. Even if it ends up being trash and the event sucks, the purpose of the event is we're showing up and bringing vets together to talk about their stories and share stories. If that happens, it's a success. Get out of here. I'm not worried about fear of oh, well, what if everything messes up and people are upset that it was a bad walk-in? Tell me about it. We'll improve it next year. What do you mean?
Yep.
There's nothing to worry about. But people always are scared of shit like that. So it's whatever.
I just gotta relate to you again.
You and I, when we talk on the phone, man, you and I have great conversations. Go ahead.
Oh yeah. Well, you as the leader of Project Refit just reminded me, especially saying the story, I'm not a vet. I decided to do this. Made me think of me coaching rugby. Never played it. And the thing about it, the thing that I always say, and I think this holds true for you too, but I'll let you confirm or deny that, is the fact that because I came to it at the right point, I didn't plan it, but I recognized it and I stepped into it. It gave me a different perspective. And what I used to tell people is I don't have any of the bad habits that a player has. And I'm curious, when you think about you and co-founding Project Refit, do you have that? Have you thought about it in that kind of way? I wasn't in Iraq in a foxhole watching my buddy get blown up and, my Humvee, all these sort of stories, but that brings a whole new perspective to it.
So, I think it's been a major benefit, actually, in many ways, especially for the guys that I interact with, because, and I'll always say it, I'm never going to understand exactly what it is that you're going through, but I do understand emotions, and I do understand PTSD, and I know I live in that shit, right? I know what night terrors are. My night terrors aren't the same as yours, right? I know what that shit is, but what did I just say about some of those, that observation piece of like how I came up with the tattoo convention? Every single other like organization that I talk to, like they always like try to bring like alcohol to attract guys and stuff like that. I'm like, Dan and I both actually. Dan is one of my favorite humans on the planet. I want to put that out there real fast. If you ever talked to him or met him, he's funny as shit. He leans into his trauma. He's like, I'm fucked up, whatever. Like, but I'm also like moving forward and taking care of it. He's a very real, very funny, very cool guy, right? And we talked about like alcohol specifically. And at the very beginning we did, by the way, I'm talking 2017 when we founded this shit. And he was drinking a beer at the time of us talking about it. And he was like, and I was like, what do you think about like alcohol? Like, should we allow that kind of shit or what? And he was like, no. Self-aware. He's self-aware of what it was doing to him, right? And then a couple years later, we almost did something with like a wine company or whatever. And one of my friends, his name is Justin Deal. He's literally one of my favorite people on the planet. Really good guy. Anytime I get the chance to talk about Justin Deal, like he's a civilian himself. He's a business guy. Like he's a salesman. Like he's part of Payday. And I think he's like a VP actually, but young guy and great outlook on life, great attitude. And he said to me, he was like, I don't think you guys should do this deal with this like wine company to raise funds and stuff. He's like, you told me that you guys aren't going to do that stuff. And that means something. And so I was like, man, damn right, boy. And I was like, you're right, boy, let's go. So it was
You're throwing my truth back at me.
And you know what? I'm humble enough, and I can say this because I'm self-aware. I'm humble enough to be able to take that shit. I'm not going to get offended. I'm like, you know what? Yeah, man. Like you're right. We're not going to do this shit. Called them up literally right after we hung up the phone together. Called that person. We can't do this. It's against what we stand for. But alcohol brings a lot of money. I'm like, I don't care about the money. And that was the conversation right there. Literally, great reminder. I don't care about the money. It's not about the money. It's about the guys at the end that we're trying to help, that we're trying to influence, and we're trying to like connect with. If people bring alcohol with them to different things, like if people bring alcohol to the retreats, we're not going to judge them. We're not going to tell them they can't have it. We're not going to do that. No, we're just not going to supply it, right? Yeah. So
there's a big difference in that too.
Big difference because it also promotes even like, hey, be responsible with your shit. If you begin to act up, we're going to, sit your ass down and give you water. Sit down, take a knee and drink water. I think it is, right? Take an aspirin or something like that, You
got to face out. Face out, take a knee, drink water.
So, like that's what one of our guys said, right? And I was like, oh, that's cool. That makes sense. So, but the bottom line of it is I do bring a different perspective because I got to see the damages of these different things that are happening in the community. And I'm trying to find me personally with my creative brain, because that's my talent. I'm very good with my creativity. I can find value and connect pieces together and find value quickly. I don't know what it is. It's a weird talent I got. It's part of my ADHD and other weird things I got going on. But I lean into it, right? And that perspective has allowed me to help out with growing this organization in a unique way. So,
and I think that perspective is so important. And I actually want to shift a little bit here, and that kind of the same area though, but talk about like the community building aspect of bringing together, civilians, law enforcement, and military, and because it's one thing to bring together military and law enforcement because there's already a lot of synergies there, right? And then you bring in the military adjacent folks, like James, like you and I, who've been around it. There, it's like, okay, you can get us involved. How do you break out of that next level, though, of maybe even educating some people who might be a little turned off to the ideas of law enforcement or turned off to the ideas of the military? Because what the real thing is. You painted out your American dream before us. I see where we all fit into it. How do you paint that vision for them?
It's almost like this entire podcast was scripted because the flow is really, really good. And the reason why I'm saying that, one of the plans, I'm ready for we're so excited for Project Refit's future because it includes everyone, right? So how though? That is the question that you just asked. That is a question that we were asking. That is a question that I've been pondering for a very long time. Step one, this tattoo convention. You're going to be bringing in a community that has a bunch of different people a part of it. There has been a shift in the tattoo community specifically, where it is one that went from laden with drugs, sex, alcohol, and a bunch of other they're actually shifting, the whole community shifting towards a very sober mindset and just about community and connectedness. And it's almost like they all look alike, right? And because they all have different tattoos, are sharing the art, they're just enjoying each other and these stories and experiences. Who else is trying to do that? The veteran community is trying to do that, right? And a lot of the veteran community is a part of the tattoo community, but they just don't know it yet, really. It's an adjacent community. So if we can so a part of the tattoo convention is, again, step one, tattoo convention. A part of the tattoo convention is an hour beforehand, before it opens up, we're going to give a class to all of the tattoo artists that want to participate, of course, and any tattoo artists that come through. They just have to show, hey, I own this. I'm a tattoo artist. I own it, or I'm a part of this tattoo shop, whatever. And they come in, and we're going to have a course, an active listening course and veteran cultural competency course that they can take before the event starts, and they're going to get a sticker that they can put in their window that says we're a Project Refit tattoo shop. And these tattoo shops will have these guys inside of it that took this course, active listening, and they're going to have packets that we're going to be able to hand them with information of nonprofits in their area, right? Wow. Or that we know of that we are partnered up with. So one of our big partners is actually Patriot Fund. We're going to be using probably a lot of the nonprofits that they've already vetted because they've done the work. So why am I going to do extra work when they do it already? And they're a great operational partner of ours. So just give them the packets, give them the training, give them the packets, and send them back out, right? Because once they do that, now these veterans in the back of their minds are going to know where they can go. So why is that step one? Because you're actually now empowering the businesses and the people who are probably civilians in helping veterans and first responders in their area. What an amazing step towards the future, because a lot of young population gets tattoos too. So they see this thing, they're exposed to it, they see it. You're actually quickly and almost like under the radar, psyops, if you will, somebody said that to me also, changing everything back over to that freedom mindset, that community mindset. We all can play a part together if we step up together in actually learning about our neighbor. Instead of just sitting, because you have to leave your house to go get a tattoo. So you're going to be out there, you're going to be hanging out, and you're going to be talking. And you're going to be able to get to know people, and you're going to be able to know that you are going to be able to help somebody else out through tough times in their life because they fought for you. Step one. Step two.
Beautiful. Oh, we're going to go through the plan.
Real quick.
All right.
So step two, that actually leads into what we actually prove at that point is that you can get people who care, who are adjacent to the community that care. And then a part of step two is you begin to find those tattoo artists who then can tell us maybe in their area, hey, have you noticed anybody that's like a veteran in your area that's opened up about this, has taken any of the packets, anything like that? Yeah, actually this guy, but great. I would love to get into contact with that guy. Could you introduce me to him? Yeah, absolutely. Talk to him like, hey man, how would you like to start like a community program in your area that supports other good community programs in your area? And your whole job would be to host like 1 or 2 events a year. Boom. You get guys that are ready to fucking go, especially veterans. That purpose, they're like, dude, yes, a chance, a plan to help out my brothers and my sisters. I'm in. Let's go. It's a no-brainer. Step one leads into step two, which leads into all the other steps. And that's it. That's the plan. It's very simple, but the execution piece is also very important. And that is those are the execution pieces. That's it. Keep it simple, stupid. You start the event, you train people up, you get them to get participated, you give them the information, they get in contact with veterans in their area, then you contact those veterans through them.
And you know what's popping into my head is
Freedom.
Go Ruck. Well, yeah, freedom. But Go Ruck, Jason McCarthy, and how he
Yeah,
started Go
man.
Ruck, he did the exact same thing, except he drove around in a van with his dog. Uh,
Oh,
and we had
James
Jason on the
James has his
show a while
dog now.
back.
You just need the van.
Oh, and
I'll
James
take my
got his
dog around
dog.
with
You
me
have a van,
everywhere, brother.
James?
I would love to talk to
There you
that guy.
go. There you go. Yeah. So I mean that what Jason did with the
Yeah,
rucking
man.
community in that sense, that's what he did to launch his business. Team Red, White, and Blue has done something similar with chapters, although I think the Rona has really put a damper, and I haven't seen them pop back up yet. So all great models to start that community, and yeah, I might know an SF guy or two that knows how to integrate into a community and build a movement.
I,
I'd love
I
to
just
know.
want to add one thing because James, you hinted at this, but I'd like to kind of spell it out a little bit for the listeners.
Hit me,
Is
man.
that
Yep.
you hit those adjacent communities, and because you hit more adjacent communities, the people in those then aren't going to be just military or just law
You got it.
enforcement,
That's
and so
exactly
you're
correct.
spreading it out more and more, and then you hit the next adjacent community. Like even it comes to
Ours.
mind of like, Dad, how many rugby guys do we know that are military? Like you hit a rugby community where it's the percentage is less, but it's still there, so you have that connection. You can kind of just inch your way out and just keep it moving. I love it.
That's exactly right. And the thing is, too, like, for instance, this car thing that we did, we just had so many guys. 250 people. We organized an event in 2 days, right? So again, QRF. This person needed money. They were struggling with it. We got the veteran into mental health treatment. We felt very compelled to help him out and his family out because we were the ones that convinced him to get in and get the treatment. And he was away from his family for a few months to do it. And when we heard that they were struggling with money, we're like, done. We'll just do an event, raise money for you. Too easy. Made it happen in 2 days. 250 cars showed up, right? We organized it in 2 days. We marketed it for like 2 weeks, and then it blew up, right? And it's because of the models that we are putting together that lead to this success. So, and it's including the police departments, the mayors, the fire departments. Get local. Get local. It is it. That's America. Grassroots matters, man. So that is like another community that we can tap into that I think that literally drives around everywhere that we can actually spread things with. So
Well, and I think that's one of the things that's great about the veteran community is everybody comes from all these different
yeah.
walks of life and has all these different hobbies and interests, from classic orchestra to muscle cars to tattoos to hunting. I mean, that's one of the really cool things, and that's also a what you're tapping into is, well, how do I expand out the veteran community to make it a real
Veteran
community?
adjacent, man.
I
It's
think
about
that's an
communities. If you want
important
to heal
part.
the
Yeah.
veteran is actually, in my view, the health of a veteran, the mental health specifically of a veteran, is actually insight to the health of the country. And there actually, if you look through history, that is the truth. The term civilian is actually it derives from Greek culture actually, and I believe that it. I don't want to say it. I know there was a term. Civilian came from idiotes. That's what it was. So it was idiotes. Basically, like they're idiots. They don't understand the world or whatever. But the thing is, they were saying that kind of in jest and kind of to be like whatever. But at the same time, there's something behind that. If you look at it in the way I interpret this. If you look at the health of a veteran, it actually does depend on whether the civilian is listening and learning or not, right? Because the veteran has real insight to the evil of men, right? There's a lot of evil that's out there in this world that I have learned from veterans that I never would have known before and been completely oblivious to if it wasn't for listening, right? That's not saying that veterans are know-alls and they know everything and I should listen to them all the time. Absolutely not, right? But there's certain things that absolutely yes. You want to know about men? You want to know about the evil that people can do and can plot? You better talk to a veteran. You better get an awakening at one point in your life to know what things are possible and what we can do, right? It's amazing what men specifically can do. I know I'm not saying women right now, but I'm talking about men because I'm talking about history. And this is a very recent thing where women are stepping up into power. But anyway, so like, which is fine. It's not a negative thing. I feel like I have to say that. But men are very capable of some crazy shit, to be really blunt. And I never knew what men were capable of until I really began to get to know the veteran. So it's something I'm very grateful for as well. And I think that you can, again, gauge the health of a community and of a country based on the health of the veteran. And we're not doing too hot right now.
Yeah, there's, and I think I want to say it was Jordan Peterson, but I think it was somebody before him that actually talked about it. I think Jordan Peterson referred to the monster inside of the man. You have to have the monster. A man has to have the monster inside of him, but a real man knows how to control it. There's a lot to be said for that when you talk about the evil of man. I mean, having seen some of it and having thought of some of it, there's plenty of times where I'm thinking, damn, I'm glad I'm on our side, along with guys that think like me. Man, I'm gonna slip us into what did I learn, almost regrettingly, because I want to continue on, but I also want to respect you going out and doing the site recon today, which just means footnote, Camden. James will be back. Probably. Let's just put a mark on the wall for the fall.
As you say, every 6 months, let's just start rotating.
Before the tattoo.
Let's go. I'm in. I'll give you a 6-month update.
And I'm gonna for what did I learn? I'm gonna say, and it's a rephrasing of something I've thought about, and you brought it back to my mind. Is you don't have to walk it in order to live it. And it just that sense of, my experience with rugby, your experience with Project Refit and working with veterans, you don't necessarily have to be that person who's walked through all the crap in order to be a part of it and support it. And I think that's a great refresher for everybody to remember is, and going back to supporting your adjacent communities, I mean, validates it right there. So, Camden, what'd you learn?
First, I got to reemphasize, I am definitely stealing James's definition of the American dream because that is so much more effective, so much better put, so much more beautiful than anything I've ever said when I've been asked that question before. But then the other piece, there at the end. Take it. Is talking about just communicating and just learning from each other and from our military communities. It makes me think of, talking about the evils of the world and being able to understand that. Dad, you and I texting last week about the episode of Traffic with Mariana Vanzeller, talking about the terrorist organizations running on oil and all this and just this crazy investigative journalism to where it's like, I was watching and I was like, I think I've heard my dad talk about this before. Sent it over to him and he's like, that's just the beginning of it. More people need to watch these things to understand what's really going on out there. And as civilians, I think it can be a scary thing because we don't want to just live in that world, but you don't have to live in that world, but you should be educated on it. You should understand that it's out there. And then, hey, live in America, follow the American dream and take that role consciously, but you still should be educated on what's out there. So that's what I learned.
James, how about you, man? What'd you learn?
It's such a deep question. Something that I learned is that I, especially in recent months, somebody said it to me. It was my buddy Ryan Harbinson actually said to me, he's like, dude, you're so mentally tough. It's insane. He's like, I could not put up with the shit that you're putting up with. So I actually want to take the time to kind of like give myself a pat on the back of like how much I've endured and like remind myself of that because I can feel the stress right here, right there in my neck, right? And because I know that it is not about me. And I think that kind of mindset is super important. And that's what makes even like the military like so powerful and strong, is it's that mindset of like, it's about the mission. It's not even about me. It's about the mission. And literally that is how like Refit started. So I think that kind of mindset of like, you know what, if I'm not going to do it, who else is going to do it kind of thing, is really strong. And yeah, I would love to help the rest of the American community feel that too. So I learned that I need to keep going and never stop.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome. How do folks follow you? What, get on the Project Refit email list, see what's going on. Where do we find all that?
Go to projectrefit.us. Again, that's projectrefit.us, like the United States, number one country in the world. And then at Project Refit, basically everywhere. Instagram, Facebook. We don't really use Twitter. We might actually start using it again, though. Who knows? But everywhere. At LinkedIn, Project Refit. So subscribe.
Awesome,
Subscribe
man.
to our website.
There you go. That's what we need people to do, is start there. Start there with the subscription. Go to the website, sign up so you get notifications. So you're updated on this tattoo convention that's going to happen in Camden, New Jersey,
Sign up.
coming
You
up
can
in
actually
October.
I might have to go.
whether you're a participant or sponsor.
Got to go back to the homeland of Camden.
Oh, very good.
That's right, man.
I've not heard good things about Camden, New Jersey, to be
that's
fair,
such
though.
It is not you. Let's put it that way.
Awesome, man. James, this has been great, brother. Always good to see you and spend some time with you. I look forward to that next moment we get to
Amen,
spend
brother.
together. Thanks for being
Thank
there.
you, guys.
Camden, run us out.
All right. Thank y'all for listening to the Cam and Otis Show, and a special thanks to our guest, James Corbett, for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to pass it along to someone else so they can enjoy it too. Make sure to follow the Cam and Otis Show on Facebook and Instagram, and you can watch full videos of the show on our YouTube page. And while you're there, make sure you hit that subscribe button too. As always, the full archive of our episodes is available at www.camandotisshow.com. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next time.